Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please take a moment to leave a comment. Thank you. The Victorinox 108mm knives are more than just a German Army knife. Today I want to talk about some of my favorite Victorinox knives, and that's the 108mm line. Most people know of the line from the German Army knife, the original 108mm German Army knife. I've done a video on this. You know, you've got your saw blade with the combo tool and screwdriver, and later ones with a nail file, and then you've got the main blade, nice long spear blade, and then a corkscrew and a punch or reamer on the back, and then the German Army Eagle on the front. And these were the first Victorinox knives that came out with the nylon scales. Now these knives were very popular, and so popular that Victorinox started making them in a civilian line known as the Trooper or Safari Trooper, and then they also came out with a one-layer version and a three-layer version. And these are the only examples I have of them. There's more types than just the three showing here. I'll try and cover those also a little bit in this, but I thought I would just talk about the 108mm line today. Okay, before we go into all the different patterns, let's go with the dimensions of the knife. So as you know, it's 108mm closed, which for us people in the United States, 108mm is approximately 4¼ inches. Now the blade length on it, it's a spear blade. That's usually the main blade that you have on it, and it is 84mm long. And how can you tell that? Here's a Cadet, which is an 84mm ALOX version, and the blade is the same length as your 84mm ALOX. So the blade is 84mm long, which would come out to about 3¼ inches long, and the cutting edge on the blade is 75mm, or about 2 7/8 of an inch. Now that's the main blade that you'll find on them, and this is the knife that only has a single layer, and this is known as the Solo Plus. What makes it a Solo Plus is it has a corkscrew, a 5-turn corkscrew, and that is the only back tool that you have on the knife. Now the Solo is the same knife, but it lacks a corkscrew, and originally this knife was known as the Adventurer, so it changed names over time. And what you have on it are always red ALOX scales, and then it's a nylon scale, and you have this treatment on it so that you have a good grip on it, and then you have the cross in the spot where the German Army Eagle would have been. So this is the Solo Plus. If you were looking for a Solo, it would be the same knife, except it would be lacking a corkscrew. They all have a lanyard hole. None of them come with a key ring or anything. And this is your, like I said, Solo Plus. And now the knife that started it off was the German Army knife, and we know what the blades are on there. You have your file on a blade. This is the later version. Earlier ones did not have a file on it. They don't always have the cover for the saw, but you have a wood saw and then a combo tool up on the top. All of these tools are on one blade: saw, file, combo tool, which acts as a can opener, cap lifter, and a screwdriver. And then the back blade on it is a long Spearmaster blade. And the back tools are a corkscrew and a punch or a reamer. Now, the first civilian version of this was just known as the Trooper, and the difference between a German Army knife and a Trooper is instead of the German Eagle here, you have a blank space here where you would be able to put your name or something. Otherwise, it's the same knife, same nylon scales, same OD color, everything about it is the same, and it was known as the Trooper. And then later, when they started with the Safari line, this came out with red scales, similar to what you see on the Solo here, with the cross and everything, and it was known as the Safari Trooper. And then eventually they were both called Safari Trooper or just Trooper because the name just kind of gets squished around a lot. But to be exact, this is a German Army knife. If it lacks the German Eagle but has a green scales and a long spot here for where you could put initials or something, a long blank spot, then it is the Trooper. And if it has red scales like this, it is the Safari Trooper. Now there's also another version of this knife that lacks any back tools. And so if you have these two blades, the saw blade and a spear blade, but no back tools, what you have is known as a Pathfinder. Now next is the 3-layer knives, and this is known as the Hunter or Safari Hunter. Now originally these knives came with a imitation stag handle or antler handle, but the 3 blades are the same on this as they are with the one that has the imitation stag handles. Now this is the first Hunter. It eventually became the 111 millimeter Hunter, and you can see the difference in size. Basically 3 millimeters longer, and the ergonomic designs of the scales on the other Hunter. Also, just for comparison, here is a Spartan, so you can see 91 millimeters versus 108 millimeters. So there's the differences in size that you have between these knives. What the Hunter has on it is you have the saw blade, or the combo tool saw blade, and then the back blade is your spear blade, and finally you have a gutting blade. Now there's 2 different kinds of gutting blades that show up on this knife. One of them is a serrated gutting blade, and then the other one is just the fine edge gutting blade like you have here. This is also sometimes just called the safety blade, because this blade ended up becoming a blade used for cutting seatbelts and stuff also. And as far as I know, all of the 3-layer tools have a corkscrew and a reamer. And notice the reamer is just a nice long reamer. No hole in it. It's not for sewing or anything like that. If you also noticed, all of the blades open in the same direction. So you got 3 blades, 3 layers, and they're all opening at the top of the knife. And even the corkscrew and the reamer open towards the front. So everything opens in the same direction. And all of them have the red nylon scales with the lanyard hole in them. Now there's a couple different versions with the 3 layers. There's also a Mauser. The Mauser replaces the gutting blade that's in the middle here with a clip point blade. It has a dark olive drab handle with the word Mauser on there instead of the Swiss Cross or the German Army knife thing. So it was a specially made knife for the Mauser company, the Mauser rifle company or firearms company. So that's the difference between these and the Mauser and a Hunter. Now there's also one other interesting knife that's kind of a cross between the Hunter and the Pathfinder, one of the knives that does not have any back tools. The 2-blade version of this without back tools, which is the Pathfinder. There's also one that's called the Swiss Shark. And what the Swiss Shark has on it is the gutting blade, a serrated gutting blade, and the spear blade in the back, but no saw blade and no back tools. And that would be the Swiss Shark. From what I understand, only about 50 Swiss Sharks were made, so that's probably one of the rarest of the 108 millimeter knives. So if you're lucky enough to have one, congratulations. I am not willing to spend a ton of money for it. The big thing to remember though is the 108 millimeter Hunter basically turns into the 111 millimeter Hunter, and surprisingly, both of the knives have 3 layers, and both of the knives have the same amount of functionality. The only difference is the 108 millimeter Hunter has a single blade that acts as a saw, a combo tool, and the 108 millimeter Hunter has a combo tool and a much longer wood saw that you can use. And for its gutting blade, it uses a very short gutting blade on this end, and here's the other gutting blade. So there's the difference in gutting blades between the 108mm Hunter and the 111mm Hunter. And as you can tell, none of the 108mm knives have the tools and the scales, as in a pair of tweezers and toothpick. But otherwise, also the back tools on the two Hunters, same back tools. A reamer and a corkscrew. So really do like the Hunter in both 111mm and the 108mm. But these are just really kind of cool knives, and I wish Victorinox would come back out with them for a while, and maybe even add tools to them. You can put the put the toothpick and tweezers up at the top of the scales, maybe, because you still got the lanyard hole in the back. But if you're lucky enough to own a few, congratulations. Otherwise, they are still out there, but they're getting more and more harder to find, and also more expensive. And they are definitely some of my favorites, and I'll still be looking for other ones. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.